Hello and welcome to Antrix Media. Malaysia Airlines Flight 17, MH17, MAS17, was a scheduled passenger flight from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur that was shot down by Russian-controlled forces on 17 July 2014, while flying over eastern Ukraine. All 283 passengers and 15 crew were killed. Contact with the aircraft, a Boeing 777-200ER, was lost when it was about 50 kilometers (31 miles) from the Ukraine-Russia border, and wreckage from the aircraft fell near Hrabove in Donetsk Oblast, Ukraine, 40 kilometers (25 miles) from the border. The shoot-down occurred during the war in Donbas over territory controlled by Russian separatist forces. The responsibility for investigation was delegated to the Dutch Safety Board, DSB, and the Dutch-led Joint Investigation Team, JIT, who in 2016 reported that the airliner had been downed by a Buk surface-to-air missile launched from pro-Russian separatist-controlled territory in Ukraine. Chapter 1. Aircraft. Flight 17, which was also marketed as KLM Flight 4103, KL 4103, through a code-share agreement, was operated with a Boeing 777-2H6ER, serial number 28411, registration 9MMRD. The 84th Boeing 777 produced. It first flew on 17 July 1997, exactly 17 years before the incident, and was delivered new to Malaysia Airlines on 29 July 1997. Powered by two Rolls-Royce Trent 892 engines and carrying 280 seats, 33 business and 247 economy, the aircraft had recorded more than 76,300 hours in 11,430 cycles before the crash. The aircraft was in an airworthy condition at departure. The Boeing 777, which entered commercial service on 7 June 1995, has one of the best safety records among commercial aircraft. In June 2014, there were about 1,212 aircraft in service, with 340 more on order. Chapter 2. Passengers and crew. All 283 passengers and 15 crew died. By 19 July, the airline had determined the nationalities of all 298 passengers and crew. The crew were all Malaysian, while over two-thirds, 68%, of the passengers were Dutch. Most of the other passengers were Malaysians and Australians. The remainder were citizens of 7 other countries. Also on board were Dutch Senator Willem Witteveen, Australian author Liam Davison, and Malaysian actress Shuba J. At least 20 family groups were on the aircraft and 80 passengers were under the age of 18. The flight crew were Captains Wan Amran Wan Hussein, 49, and Eugene Chu Jin Leong, 44, and First Officers Ahmed Hakimi Hanapi, 29, and Muhammad Firdaus Abdul Rahim, 26. Chapter 3. Background. The armed conflict in eastern Ukraine led some airlines to avoid eastern Ukrainian airspace in early March 2014 due to safety concerns. In the months prior to 17 July, reports circulated in the media on the presence of weapons, including surface-to-air missiles, in the hands of the rebels that were fighting the Ukrainian government in eastern Ukraine. On 26 May, a spokesperson of the Ukrainian armed forces stated that a surface-to-air missile system that was being used by the rebels, near Donetsk airport, had been destroyed by a helicopter of the Ukrainian army. On 6 June 2014, the International New York Times reported that surface-to-air missiles had been seized from military bases. On 29 June, the Russian news agencies reported that insurgents had obtained a Buk missile system after having taken control of Ukrainian military unit A1402, and the Donetsk People's Republic claimed possession of such a system in a since-deleted tweet. Such air defense systems cannot reliably identify and avoid civilian aircraft. The Ukrainian authorities declared in the media that this system was not operational. According to the subsequent statement of the Security Service of Ukraine, 3 Buk missile systems were located on militia-controlled territory at the time that Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777 was shot down. On the night following the downing of MH17, 2 Buk launcher vehicles, one of which carried 3 missiles, out of a normal complement of 4, was observed moving into Russia. Several aircraft from the Ukrainian Air Force were shot down in the months and days preceding the MH17 incident. On 14 June 2014, a Ukrainian Air Force Ilyushin Il-76 military transport was shot down on approach to Luhansk International Airport, with loss of 9 crew members and 40 troops. On 14 July 2014, a Ukrainian Air Force An-26 transport aircraft flying at 6,500 meters, 21,300 feet, was shot down. The militia reportedly claimed via social media that a Buk missile launcher, which they had previously seized and made operational, had been used to bring down the aircraft. American officials later said evidence suggested the aircraft had been shot down from Russian territory. Chapter 4: Flight and Shoot Down. The Dutch Safety Board reported that both the cockpit voice recorder, CVR, and the flight data recorder, FDR, stopped recording at 16 hours 20 minutes and 3 seconds local time, 13 hours 20 minutes and 3 seconds Coordinated Universal Time. The last FDR data indicates that the plane was at the position of 48.12715 and 38.526305338 located west of the urban-type settlement Rosipna, near Hrabove, heading east-southeast, SA, 115 degrees, at an altitude of 32,998 feet above sea level with a ground speed of 494 knots, 915 km per hour, 568 miles per hour, and an indicated airspeed of 293 knots. The flight recorders show no sign of warning or unusual occurrence prior to the end of their recordings, but 2 sound peaks are heard in the last 20 milliseconds of the CVR recording. Missile strike. At 16 hours 20 minutes and 3 seconds local time, 13 hours 20 minutes and 3 seconds Coordinated Universal Time, a Buk ground-to-air missile, which had been launched from an area southeast of the aircraft, detonated outside the airplane, just above and to the left of the cockpit. The blast and fragments of the missile severely damaged the cockpit and instantly killed 3 crew members in it. Evidence on the left engine intake ring and left wingtip suggests that the left wing and left engine had also picked up some shrapnel from the missile. An explosive decompression occurred, tearing the forward section of the aircraft into pieces, causing the middle and rear sections to tear into 3 sections and depressurizing the cabin. Some occupants might have suffered serious injuries that contributed to their deaths before the crash. The aircraft fell rapidly and continued disintegrating before impacting the ground. Investigators believed that the disintegration of the forward section of the fuselage started between the left side cockpit windows and the forward, left exit door. The cockpit section and the business class section of the aircraft began tearing into a number of pieces before the aircraft descended rapidly toward the ground. During that period of time, the left engine intake ring had also fallen off the engine and fell in the same place as where some of these pieces fell. Debris field. The mid-air disintegration had caused the seats, pieces of interior wall and floor, overhead compartments, and other interior structures of the aircraft to fall out of the plane. Some bodies, personal belongings, and other light objects had also fallen out of the plane. Most of the debris of the aircraft, which were the middle and rear sections, landed near southwest of the village of Hrabove, north of Terez, now also known as Chistyakovo. The wreckage had spread over a 50 square kilometers, 19 square miles, area in Donetsk Oblast, eastern Ukraine. The fireball on impact is believed to have been captured on video. Photographs from the site of the crash show scattered pieces of broken fuselage and engine parts, bodies, and passports. Dozens of bodies fell into crop fields, and some fell into houses. Chapter 5: Recovery of Bodies. A Ukraine Foreign Ministry representative said that the bodies found at the crash site would be taken to Kharkiv for identification, 270 kilometers, 170 miles, to the north. By the day after the crash, 181 of the 298 bodies had been found. Some were observed being placed in body bags and loaded onto trucks. It was reported on the 21st of July that with 282 bodies and 87 body fragments found, there were still 16 bodies missing. An agreement had been reached that the Netherlands would coordinate the identification effort. A train carrying the bodies arrived at the Malaysia factory, Kharkiv, on the 22nd of July. Dutch authorities stated that they found 200 bodies on the train when it arrived at Kharkiv, leaving almost 100 unaccounted for. In late July, the UK Metropolitan Police sent specialist officers to Ukraine to assist with the recovery, identification and repatriation of bodies. By the 5th of December 2014, the Dutch-led forensic team had identified the bodies of 292 out of 298 victims of the crash. Chapter 6: Aftermath. About 90 minutes after the incident, Ukraine closed all routes in eastern Ukrainian airspace, at all altitudes. Shortly after the crash, it was announced that Malaysia Airlines would retire flight number MH17 and change the Amsterdam-Kuala Lumpur route to flight number MH19 beginning on 25 July 2014, with the outbound flight unchanged. On 18 July 2014, shares in Malaysia Airlines dropped by nearly 16%. On 23 July 2014, 2 Ukrainian military jets were hit by missiles at the altitude of 17,000 feet, 5,200 meters, close to the area of the MH17 crash. According to the Ukrainian Security Council, preliminary information indicated that the missiles came from Russia. In July 2015, Malaysia proposed that the United Nations Security Council set up an international tribunal to prosecute those deemed responsible for the downing of the aircraft. The Malaysian resolution received the support of 11 of the 15 members in the Council, with 3 abstentions. The resolution was vetoed by Russia. The Russian government proposed an alternative draft resolution, which would not have set up a tribunal. Chapter 7: Investigation. Soon after the crash, both American and Ukrainian officials said that a 9M38 series surface-to-air missile strike was the most likely cause. If so, then the missile was fired from a mobile Soviet-designed Buk missile system, NATO reporting name, SA-11, Gadfly. At the time, Buk was the only surface-to-air missile system known to be deployed in the region that was capable of reaching the cruising altitude of commercial air traffic. Such systems, unless they receive information from larger networks, have limited capacity to distinguish between military and civilian aircraft. According to defense analyst Reed Foster, from Jane's Information Group, the contour of the aluminium and the blistering of the paint around many of the holes on the aircraft fragments indicate that small, high-velocity fragments entered the aircraft externally, a damage pattern indicative of an SA-11. Ballistics specialist Stefan Fruling of the Australian National University's Strategic and Defence Studies Centre concurred with this, explaining that since it struck the cockpit rather than an engine, it was probably a radar-guided, rather than heat-seeking, missile equipped with a proximity-fuzzed warhead such as an SA-11. Chapter 8: Dutch Safety Board reports. The Dutch Safety Board, DSB, issued its final report on the crash on 13 October 2015. The report concluded that the crash was caused by a Buk 9M38 series surface-to-air missile with a 9N314M warhead. The warhead detonated outside and above the left-hand side of the cockpit. Fragments from the exploding warhead killed the 3 people in the cockpit and caused structural damage to the airliner, leading to an in-flight breakup resulting in a wreckage area of 50 square kilometers, 19 square miles, and loss of the lives of all 298 occupants. Calculating the trajectory of the missile, the Dutch National Aerospace Laboratory determined that it was fired within a 320 square kilometer, 120 square miles, area southeast of Therese. Narrowing down a specific launch site was outside the DSB's mandate. The findings did not specify who launched the Buk missile, but the area identified by the DSB was controlled by pro-Russian separatists at the time of the downing, according to the final report. The DSB judged that the Ukrainian authorities should have closed the airspace above eastern Ukraine prior to the incident due to the ongoing conflict and earlier military shootdowns, but noted that states involved in armed conflicts rarely did so. Chapter 9: Conspiracy Theories. According to the Russian military, in what New York Magazine called Russia's conspiracy theory, MH17 was shot down by the Ukrainians, using either a surface-to-air missile or a fighter aircraft. On 21 July 2014, the Russian Ministry of Defense, MOD, held a press conference and claimed that satellite photographs showed that the Ukrainian army moved a Buk-Sam battery to the area close to the territory controlled by the rebels on the morning of 17 July, hours before the crash. They said the installation was moved away again by 18 July. The Russian MOD also claimed that they had detected a Ukrainian Air Force Su-25 and that this ground attack aircraft approached to within 3 to 5 kilometers, 2 to 3 miles, of the Malaysian airliner wreckage. In 2015, Bellingcat purchased satellite photos from the same area and time as used by the MOD and demonstrated that the MOD had used older photos, May and June 2014, in their presentation, and that the presentation had been edited to make a Ukrainian Buk launcher appear as if it had been removed after the attack. In the report published by the Dutch Safety Board, an air-to-air missile strike was ruled out. Other conspiracy theories propagated by Russian pro-government media included claims that the Ukrainians had shot down the airliner by mistake, drawing parallels to the downing of Siberia Airlines Flight 1812 in 2001, reported in December 2014, that Ukrainian air traffic controllers had deliberately redirected the flight to fly over the war zone, and that the Ukrainian government had organized the attack to discredit the pro-Russian rebels. In 2017, Dutch newspaper NRC Handelsblad described how false stories about the MH17 crash had been propagated with the support of Christian Democratic Appeal politician Peter Omtzigt, who introduced a Russian-speaking Ukrainian man as an eyewitness to the crash on a public expert debate in May 2017.